the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Hey YouTube, and welcome to BackYardAutoTV. This is a channel dedicated to Ecotec related, Ecotec enthusiast builds, maybe little off-road go-karts and things like that. This channel was definitely inspired by a bunch of other YouTube channels. I bought this car brand new in 2008. It's a 2009 Chevrolet Cobalt SS. It's the 2.0 turbo. Well, not any longer. It's actually a stroker motor, but we'll get into that. So I figure what better way than to love YouTube by giving back to that community. And I think that maybe my projects here are going to be slightly different than some of these other guys. A lot of those guys are into either their V8s or they're into their JDM stuff. Well, not here. Here we're into domestic four bangers, and we're going to try and set some world records. I'll give you a little bit of history and a backstory about this Cobalt, but this Cobalt was bought in 2008. Before my first son was born. I bought this car brand new, and I bolted it up with all the bolt-ons you could get when this car was brand new. Lots of people were coming up with all kinds of different things, so I strapped on every bolt-on that you could find for this car, she wasn't to be messed with. Now that's quite a few years ago, and things have changed since then. I used to operate out of a little tiny shop with a mid-rise rotary lift that had rust all over it, and eventually I just got tired of you know, laying on the ground and oil and, you know, all this stuff that you see laying around here. It just got to be a cluster. I, you know, went ahead and figured out a way to get this shop built. Put everything in it in the last year and a half. So the car's been sitting dormant for about a year. Just dropped the engine out of it recently, and we're going to fix some things that went wrong in the first about 1,200, 1,500 miles of running it hard with a big turbo and rebuilt engine that I built by myself. You know, I learned some things during that process. So right now we've got the engine taken out, and we're going to modify it to make it hopefully a little bit more reliable. And, you know, we'll probably break some things right away. I mean, if you're not breaking stuff, you're not trying hard enough. And that's basically the philosophy of this channel. After I built it, you know, it turned into a whole new animal. And, you know, the faster you go and the faster you start to push the car's limits, you start to run into unforeseen problems. So that's basically where we're at with this thing. We are going to fully tear the engine down. Well, at least maybe we'll see how far we get with that, but I'm not a professional fabricator. All of this is new to me. In the last 12 months, whatever we'll call it, 16 months, I've spent all that I had on making this shop. It's not stuffed with tools yet, but we'll gather those as time goes on, provided that they are economical for me. I use a lot of Chinese, so to speak, junk. You know, I use a lot of Harbor Freight things and things to get me by, you know, to get me to the next level. I couldn't afford all the stuff that I do if I went out there and bought Snap-on everything and a Challenger lift, you know. Instead, I've got things like BendPack. But, you know, it seems to be okay. It seems to be all right, and it works for what I need it for. Just like all the rest of these tools seems to work, you know, just how I need it to. So you can see over there, we've got the Vulcan welding set up over there. That's a TIG. And I just learned, you know, TIG welding in the last, we'll call it last 6 months or so. You know, learn the ins and outs of TIG welding, which has been an entire... I thought it was going to be way easier than it actually was. Well, to do it right, you know. I mean, anybody can probably pick up a TIG welder within the first few hours. They can sort of, kind of weld with it, but not up to the, not up to par. And that's basically what I need to be able to do, is I need to be able to weld tubular chassis and different things with the structural integrity to be able to pass inspections and things for some of these different events and racetracks. Hopefully we have some entertaining projects and things that we're doing around the backyard, around the house, that keeps this channel fresh for you. I've been looking a lot at like Copart cars, you know, like Tarvish, he gets into those things, and it's just, I'm not really equipped for that. You know, I started a group, 5280 Cobalts, with some friends of mine who also owned Cobalts years ago. And when the car was still fresh, you know, the turbo car just came out, you know, I wanted to go ahead and support that community. Well, the community's kind of dropped off. 5280 Cobalts is still around. It's got quite a few members, and it's still doing okay, but it's definitely not as popular as it once was. Maybe this will help inspire other guys who have the platform to carry on with it, you know, and keep making parts for it, because I'm not stopping. You know, obviously I have a passion for this car. I love this car, this platform in general, and I want to see it become something it was never meant to be. I've done a lot of my own things to this car, some good, some bad. And I'm not a professional in any specific area. You know, my background is information technology, things like that. So, you know, I like to tinker. This is my hobby. So I figure, why not share my struggles, my pains, my gains, things like that with you guys. You can only watch YouTube for so long before you like get out there and actually experience things and start doing things. But I definitely prefer domestic stuff. This is kind of a unicorn, I would say, out of a lot of the different breeds that are out there. Not as many parts. The community is way smaller. But, you know, the bodies are getting cheaper. You know, the first Cobalt body was in the early 2000s. And, you know, they're becoming like the Honda Civic kind of. So eventually, you know, we'll have all kinds of Cobalts running around here. But like and subscribe if you want to continue to see this thing transform into the beast it should be. Thanks, YouTube.